It's often said that the ethic of hard work and dedication is passed on from generation to generation. And no truer words can be spoken than of the family tree of Jim Brown. His ancestry is emblematic of the Irish experience in northeastern Pennsylvania. Miners who worked tirelessly to support their family. Immigrants who came to this country for a better life and became entrepreneurs and good citizens. Jim Brown was the oldest of 5 children, and growing up in his neighborhood on Monroe Avenue was a wonderful period in his life. The Brown family settled in Dunmore and moved in with his grandparents. Jim attended George Washington Public School No. 3 and St. Mary's Catholic School in Dunmore. He enjoyed summer months at Lake Ariel, and religion always played a big part in the Brown family.
We were like everybody else. We went to church, and my mother in particular, we had a house at Lake Ariel, and we always had friends and cousins and packed the house every weekend. And my mother's one rule was everybody goes to church on Sunday. I think it was 9 o'clock Mass. And I remember hearing this discussion between my mother and one of my brother's friends. But Mrs. Brown, I'm Jewish. Get in the car.
And although he didn't have any specific plans on where to go to high school, one of the nuns at St. Mary's urged Jim to apply for a scholarship to attend Scranton Prep. He got that scholarship and was graduated in 1969. He received a 4-year National Merit Scholarship to Villanova University, and then headed to the University of Virginia Law School, where he earned his Juris Doctorate in 1976. It was during his time at the University of Virginia that Jim first realized he had a calling for public service.
The summer between first and second year in law school, I had an uncle who got me a summer internship, and I worked on the Hill, and it was the summer of Watergate. So I would come into the Rayburn House office building every morning, and I had to walk by the House Judiciary Committee hearing room where they were holding the impeachment hearings with Congressman Rodino and company. And I was kind of hooked. I was there for that summer, and so that's what I wanted to do.
After receiving his law degree, he worked for 4.5 years in Washington as an attorney for the House Banking Committee. It was also during that time that he met the love of his life, his future wife, Lynn.
We were a Capitol Hill softball romance. I worked for, as I said, the House Banking Committee, and the chairman of my subcommittee was a congressman from New Jersey, and my wife, Lynn, is from New Jersey, and she was working in his personal office, and we had a softball team, as everybody does on Capitol Hill. So that was, we had known each other for a couple of years, and then post softball games, romance bloomed.
Bob Casey was a mentor to Jim Brown since his early childhood days at Lake Ariel. Shortly after Casey's term had ended as Auditor General, Bob became a partner in a Philadelphia law firm. Jim was also ready to move on from his Capitol Hill job and asked Bob what he thought might be the next step to advance his career.
And his answer was, "You should come to work for me." So that's how it happened.
Jim and Lynn got married and started their new life in Scranton. Although it was an intense and hard-working time with a very talented group at the law firm, Jim gained invaluable experience and was able to work on deals that would have a major impact on our area, including the baseball stadium and the Lackawanna Hotel.
And then Bob Casey called me in one day in early 1985 and said, "I'm going to run for governor again." And so I volunteered, and they made me the lawyer for the campaign. They said, "You're the counsel for the campaign." I remember I had this discussion with Bob Casey Sr. and James Carville, who was the campaign manager, and I said, "Okay, great. What am I supposed to do?" And Carville looks at me and says, he goes, this is my Carville imitation, He goes, anything that can get us kicked off the ballot or sent to jail, you're in charge of. So that's what I did. And so I for all of 1985 and 1986, I practiced law and did the campaign. And then when the governor was elected, he invited me to go to Harrisburg with him.
Jim eventually became the governor's chief of staff. With a multi-million-dollar budget and 1,400 employees, Jim was the governor's right-hand man, working with him to advance economic development, obtain funding for projects like the arena in Wilkes-Barre, the Casey Highway, and the Steamtown Mall in Scranton. One of Jim's crowning achievements was the development of the CHIP program, the first in America, and a model for the national program.
And then one other item that I was very proud of was that I helped write a governor's executive order on women in minority business. And over the course of 8 years, based on that executive order and our adherence to it, we increased the amount of state business going to women and minority-owned businesses by 1,700%.
After the governor's term of office, Jim took his skills in finance and administration and joined a venture capital firm. The group started small but grew to control over $1 billion. The firm dealt in developing hotels, telecom companies, and wireless service. But Jim never forgot his roots and his commitment to help people.
And I got to work with my friend Jack Teig again, and we started a company from scratch, which is called TMG Health. And it's about 15 years later, but TMG employs well over 2,000 people in northeastern Pennsylvania. They're up on the Casey Highway, fittingly.
During this time, Jim also became actively involved in education, helping to develop schools for disadvantaged children in the Philadelphia area. His 12 years as a venture capitalist was rewarding and exciting, but that love of public service never waned. In 2007, another Bob Casey gave Jim a call, this time Senator Robert P. Casey Jr., who asked Jim to be his chief of staff. For 9 years, he would help the senator improve the way of life for his constituents.
That we went in every day, and our job really was to, improve things for 12 million people in Pennsylvania. That's what we were supposed to be doing.
Jim is still helping others less fortunate. Now a director of the Hershey Trust Company and a member of the board of the Milton Hershey School, Jim's well-rounded experience in public service, law, business, and private equity continues to mirror the hard work and dedication of his ancestors.
This is such an honor for me to receive this, but particularly receiving an award with Governor Casey's name on it. There's not much that's better than that for me because of the relationship I've had with the governor and his family over time. And I sort of think of the governor as, and the people around him, the Jim Haggertys and Maury Myers and Mickey McDonald's of the world, as the first generation. And then the folks that he brought in, like me, who were in our early 30s, some of us in our 20s, and he gave us responsibility that was far beyond our age or accomplishments at the time, but I think he saw something in us, and he gave us a philosophy and a practice of government that was just extraordinary. He used to say that Pennsylvania is a family, and in families, nobody gets left behind. And he practiced what he preached there, and he had that sense of fairness in treatment of everybody. He also brought a belief in active, strong government, that it can be a force for good, a real force for good in the world. And he also brought that kind of hard-nosed, tough Scranton attitude that he applied to people who stood in the way of what he thought had to be done with government. And then finally, what everybody talks about, this total commitment to honesty and integrity that people, of course, remember him for. You can see the governor's philosophy and practice on full display in the United States Senate today with his son, Senator Casey. But I think what people haven't realized yet is that there's a whole third generation that's coming up. And they're the 20-somethings and 30-somethings that we worked with in Senator Casey's office in Washington. Most of the folks who work for Senator Casey, with a few exceptions, never met the governor, never saw him, and only hear about him sort of as a legend in some ways. But whether they realize it or not, they are carrying on his legacy. They are going out, they're leaving Senator Casey's office and going on to other things, and they're taking with them that that philosophy and that way of practicing government and politics that we all learned years ago from the governor himself. And so working for Senator Casey and being responsible for developing that third generation is something that I'm very proud of, and I'm very happy to have been part of that. I'd like to thank NeighborWorks Northeastern Pennsylvania for all the good work they've done, especially Jesse Ergot for his work as executive director, and to Joe Quinn and John Cosgrove particularly for the work they've done this year. I'd also want to thank the true First Lady of Pennsylvania, Ellen Casey, who's been my friend for many, many years, and I'm really honored that I can be here with her. And of course, Senator Casey, his wife Therese, and the entire Casey family. I can't name them all, but they live next door at Lake Ariel, and it's been a wonderful relationship, and we're on to new generations.